Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we are going to have a conversation, a discussion with Brian Mukolwe. I will give him a chance to introduce himself in a short while. I'm excited to be here to have a conversation with an entrepreneur. We tend to listen a whole lot from industry players, advisors, investors, but we rarely get a chance to talk to entrepreneurs and understand what they go through when it comes to fundraising. My name is Francis Nasiomba. I am the CEO of Raising Capital and the founder of Capital Connect. At Raising Capital, we help African businesses to access capital, and that's through the whole process of making sure they're eligible for capital raising, preparing them for capital raising, matching them with investors, and also structuring the transactions all the way to the famous money in the bank. And also, we came up with Capital Connect Africa, which is a capital raising, investor readiness, and matchmaking platform. And the aim was to make sure that we can be able to serve all businesses when it comes to them being able to access funds, whether it's debt, equity, grants. This is a platform that actually makes it more efficient and affordable to be able to access our advice and also be able to access the right kinds of investors. I'm happy to be here and I'm looking forward to this conversation. It is scheduled to be 1 hour, and I believe we'll be able to get some very good nuggets from the conversations we are going to have. With me, as mentioned earlier, is Brian. I'd allow him to introduce himself. Brian is an entrepreneur, has also done some fundraising, and I believe he's also in the market doing some fundraising, so it's going to be good to hear from him. So, Brian, maybe we can start by you telling us a little bit about Brian Mukolwe and Motion Industrials.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Brian Mukolwe is my name. I'm a chemical engineer by training, and with 10 years experience, that is 5 of which were in employment. That's where most of us start, and the rest have been in a private practice. So we started out Motion Industrials as an engineering company. We offer engineering solutions to industry. That is for design and supply of equipment, and you also sell industrial spare parts. Over the time, we've also grown to fulfill a need of providing safety supplies to our customers, and we also do that. Some we make locally, and some we also import. So that is me, and I hope to know you more during the call. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for the introduction. You mentioned that you started your career 10 years ago. Seems like you've done the 5 in entrepreneurship, 5 in employment. So let's start with just a global understanding of why did you decide to go into entrepreneurship? Why business? Why did you decide to set up an industry?
So it's an interesting story. I've been thinking about it. I started business, like most motivational speakers say. I started business when I was 12 years old. Not in this scale, but I've always had this itch to do business. And in class 6 is when I started business way back, selling snacks to my colleagues in boarding school. And then I went to high school where I was selling music I was selling music, uh, CDs. Those days there were CDs. Nowadays it's Bluetooth. So I had a distribution company. Those days there was Ogopa DJs. I had my own in high school, and I used to basically sell music. Though it's a crime because it was pirated music, but I had the nudge to do music. And then in university, I studied CPA, and I began a small boutique accounting company. So all through campus, I was self-independent. I took care of my own bills. So this urge for business started way back. And when I was employed, I used to work for a manufacturing company and started engineering. And I saw the need when I was there to offer, as a consumer of those services, as an engineer and a project manager. I spent a lot of money and time with engineering consultants, suppliers, and that's when I found the gap in the market for that service. So I started out Motion after working for 5 years, and my main purpose was to provide affordable but quality engineering services to Kenyan companies. So I realized we either had a divide of very expensive high-end engineering companies, and the other end, you had people could do the job but could not satisfy the threshold for regulatory compliance, safety, and all that. So I came in the middle with my experience from a multinational to offer affordable services. And I think it has been a very good journey over the past 7 years, having been a consumer of those services before. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. And again, congratulations. 7 years, I think you're already beyond the typical statistic of 90% of businesses failing in 3 years. So,
Yes.
really, really good work on that. But there's another statistic that is for the other 3 years where they say the remaining, I think, 80% of businesses fail after that. So, congratulations. I think you've jumped two hurdles. So, as we start getting into fundraising, which is why most of the people are here, I want to start with asking, when do you think is the right time to start fundraising? When should you start fundraising?
So for fundraising, I think fundraising uh, comes with a need. So I wouldn't say there's a wrong or right time. So in the more developed market, people even finance for ideas. That is for seed capital. So there's that point when you want to start, but when you're already started, there would be need for scaling operations. If you want to invest in new technology, if you want to expand, or you just want to grow your working capital, grow your volumes if you're in manufacturing. So the need is basically the time for fundraising is basically driven by the need, which will come at various points. But in our local market, uh, funding is mostly more available. You agree with me for expansion purposes? Yeah,
Yeah.
we are not yet developed to the point of seed yet. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yes. Being an advisor, I'd say we've seen a whole lot of seed. Unfortunately, in my opinion, there's very little of the high net worths who look at seed as a form of investment. So yes, most of it goes into growth, and of course the good old real estate. So brings a challenge when you have an idea. At
Mm,
what point do you go to the market? Which maybe let's just sort of roll back a little bit. When you started the business, did you have any financing support, or did it come from the famous three F's and S? That's the friends, families, fools, and savings.
So so luckily I had a bit of savings when I started the business. I must say, like the folly of most entrepreneurs will do is you start a business and do your projections from where you sit. So unfortunately, whatever I imagined was enough to start a business could not sustain runway for enough for 18 months. So yes, I started with my own funding, but the growth of the business, thank God, was faster than what I had. So I think within the first 18 months, we had exhausted what I have. And if you know the cash flow cycle, the money goes and sits The business we do here is B2B. So it doesn't sit, we're doing projects, and the projects are being done on a debt model. So the funding mostly moved to work in progress, moved to shipments, and moved to debtors book. So we quickly ran out of cash, and I think the needs fundraising started in 2019. That was, I think, 18 months after we started. Yeah. So I had my own, but the growth was more than what I had. Yeah.
So there's an anecdote, I don't know who it's attributed to, and they say that if you're starting a business and you think that you need X amount of money, you need to multiply it by three. And if you thought you needed a certain period of time to make a profit, even that you needed to multiply by three. But you and I, being entrepreneurs, sometimes we forget that. Let me just circle back a bit on the question of fundraising. You say that you start fundraising when you are in need. Would you say that's the right time? There is an argument that maybe you should start fundraising before you need the money. Would you say the right time is when you need the money?
So, oh, sorry. So it's not when you need, is when you identify the need, then you start
Okay.
fundraising.
Okay.
Identify the need. Yeah. So you'll find that, and later on we will talk about it, about the lag between when you need the money and when it's available. So there's normally the TAT, and
Yeah.
most investors are caught up between the need, the funding is available, but you've not factored in the TAT for the debt for the raise. So you find you're going through a cash flow strain which you could have avoided had you begun X minus the TAT time required. So when you're more
Yeah.
experienced, then you now know that even before you start, you should have taken care of your fundraising. Yeah, yeah.
Understood. Which brings to the next question, and I suspect TAT is part of it. What would you say are some of the significant? Maybe give us two or three challenges that you face in fundraising. What have been the most significant challenges you faced in fundraising? You may need to unmute.
So like like most viewer entrepreneurs on this call today, you'll realize one of the hardest things to do is to explain your idea to somebody else. So one of the biggest thing is to, because the investor has to buy into the idea and buy into you, you know. So one of the challenges, which is a soft challenge, is how do you express the idea? Those of you who've watched Shark Tank, that happens everywhere you go. That the person giving the money has to understand what you're doing for them to be able to give you the money. Francis has mentioned about seed. At seed level, it will even be harder for you to get money because somebody has to really understand that I'm investing in an abstract idea. How will it pay back? So that's the first challenge that I've had. How do you package the business to simplify it, but also show the opportunity that you are carrying? But again, it's not a copy paste kind of idea. Most investors will not go there. So how do you simplify while still showing the unique nature of your business, especially if it's a startup? Number two is data. We always thought about the devil living in the data. When you did our first raise, we realized that even the most mundane things you thought were not necessary are required. So, and sometimes you might go very far, you have a term sheet, but you're struggling to get very simple kind of information to share with the with the with the with the guy funding
That's
the
it.
business. So you
Yeah.
find data and building the data room the first time. Francis will tell you takes some time. They're very basic documents, but over time as you go on, it now gets easier. Yeah, so I would say those are the two challenges which we have. And for those who have startups, I think the big challenge in proving the concept, those of you who are having startups, how do you move from an idea, say from lab to reality? That is a challenge that you have to show. And you'll find most of the times people sit in these boards, if you're doing a VC or angel investor, they'll have no idea about your industry. So you have to really break it down to them in simple bits, but still keep it interesting enough for them to be able to fund your business. So those are the two things which I would, those are the three which I am cognizant of as of now. Yeah.
I was actually expecting that you'll say rejection is one of the things that you find hard to handle, but I don't know, maybe you've been heartbroken very many times before, so you know how to handle rejection. But I am also 100% sure you've been rejected in fundraising. How have you been handling it?
So with the rejection, there are two types of investors, which is uh, which is feedback for you, Francis, as well as you onboard investors. That if a deal is not good for them, some will tell you why, which is good for you to, because it's still going on fundraising. If they tell you why they didn't fundraise, why they didn't fund you, it would be good for you to go on. But some will just go silent. So what you do is that if you're an entrepreneur like me, I think the willpower needs to be there. They normally say thick skin, and I think you need to believe in yourself. If you get feedback from the investor on why they didn't invest, definitely you'll improve next time. But I think you have to keep on going. And if you're a salesperson like me, they say for every sale you must do 7 attempts. So you just go for the eighth one.
Yeah,
Yeah, you go for
and
the eighth one.
it's the
Yeah.
persistence, I guess.
Yes, you go for the eighth one.
And thanks for the feedback, Brian. And to be honest, that's one of the things that advised us creating the capital raising platform, that is capitalconnect.africa. And what we see is many entrepreneurs approach the wrong investor. So you may approach an investor and tell them, I'm in engineering, for example, and they don't do engineering. Maybe they only do healthcare. So what you've done with the platform is to make sure that you only get to engage with the investors who, one, would be happy to talk to you because of your criteria and their criteria matches, and two, they can give you feedback. And we've created it in such a way that it is not, they don't need to be shy to give you feedback. So before you even engage, they can choose to either accept you or reject you. So you get a whole lot of feedback, and you learn why are you being rejected, and you can go improve so that basically you can get a higher chance. So I'd advise that you and also any other entrepreneur on the platform on this session to go and look up capitalconnect.africa. We believe it is one of the most efficient, effective ways of being investor ready and also helping you match to the investors. So, Brian, I'd like to say pole for the rejection, but like you said, you're a salesperson, so you should not be shocked on that. But which brings to the next point. Yes, you get rejected. You say you keep going until you get to number 8. What are you doing to improve your chances of being able to fundraise? What are you trying to do so that you don't need to hit number 8? Maybe you'll hit number 4 and then become successful. What are the things you're implementing to achieve that?
So it was on mute. I was trying to improve on one, whom we are pitching to. That's the first thing. That's the difference I said. So the whom. So if there's somebody who only does healthcare, like for example, somebody only funding healthcare, I would not go there. If you want to try the eighth one, that's the wrong place to try. So the whom, then the what you are presenting. How do you keep on refining your model, refining your concept, and also just updating your pitch and updating your data? That are there any new trends that have come up that have been doing pitch decks? Pitches are being done probably 5 years ago. France now are different. Would you want
Yeah.
to? How do you keep yourself best? And I would say you get better at it over time. So your chances get uh, get higher because one is from the previous rejections which you have, you really know what to do with. You also have the right audience. So and as the company grows older, luckily you also the brand is more trusted. Like go in and say those who've started, if you're able to go through the hurdles that Francis mentioned, pitching at month 9 and pitching at year 8, slightly easier. Year 8 because you have some traction. Your content is already proven. You already revenue or even so it gets easier. The luck with us is we have done a raise before, so you already have some references of previous raises, and it gives confidence to the people that yes, uh, especially for the foreign funders, that But if they got money from X, this is a good platform. They are reliable fundee. Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Brian. So you've mentioned a very good point, and that one is on pitching. And you said it's who you pitch to and how you pitch, what you also pitch. So maybe to just try to drill down into that, what would you say entails a good pitch, or what should someone consider to be a good pitch when they're pitching?
So like I say, like they always say, a pitch is like a story. Those of you who remember the maestro of doing pitches, I think, is Steve Jobs. I don't know if somebody has done better than him, Francis. You should tell us. I think.
I don't think so. He's and
uh,
he also failed at some point. So yeah.
yes. So, how do you tell your story? And I think what has been said often is, what problem are you solving? So, how do you craft your business to be telling a story? If you look at all successful companies that have managed to raise money, there's one thing in common: they're solving a problem. So, do say anything else, but ensure you highlight the problem that you're solving and the solution. Then, for the opportunity, are you able to measure it? You need to find a matrix to measure it. So over time, we've been able to measure our market, uh, what is attainable to us, and what is the room for growth, and how do you intend to grow to that room. So, for example, if you're starting maybe a food delivery business, say out of Nairobi, for example, you'd say we're starting this in city X because of my resources. I can only do this. But however, these are the potential number of users, say in Kenya, users in East Africa. If I get X amount of money, I'm able to expand and grow to this particular market. But you need to do some research, Francis. Get reliable data that can be backed up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the UN, the East African Commission. There's so much data that's available that you're able
Yeah.
to back up. And the moment the investors see that they can verify, they can now tend to start believing in your numbers. And then two is also the risks. You need to identify the risks early and show the mitigations that you're also going to put in place. So I would say those two things are things that I have learned. And of late, Francis, there is a lot of after 7 years, I have understood the importance of scale. So if you're able to portray it being scalable, then yes, you are on the right path. So as you make your model, the question is, how easy is it for you to do it in many iterations and do
Yeah.
it in bigger volume, and probably do it with automation and do it without a lot of human intervention? Then your chances of it being taken up definitely will go higher. Yeah.
So I want to make this a little bit of a personal question, and it's of course related to the fundraising journey. What's the most difficult moment you faced during fundraising? What moment would you say I was fundraising, and this at this moment that one was a difficult one?
So one of the so this is interesting because this was from a high net worth, and I was trying to fundraise not the traditional way. And we had a high net worth who was very interested in our business, uh, and we put out our pitch, and we normally talk about our customers at some point. So what happened is, some people would find strength in some customers, and some will not want to deal with a particular customer. For example, you see people were saying some goods, it's like an embargo. So in our business, one of our customers who is quite big is in the brewing industry, where they consume a lot of spares. But this was a Muslim, with all due respect. And I was blowing my trumpet on the big turnover that they're giving us and their payment terms. They said, sorry, that is haram. So I didn't know what to do. And it brought a very different perspective, which now Francis just mentioned before, that who are you pitching to? So I realized that yes, that now I tried to salvage it, but it was a bit hard. Had I maybe fronted maybe the agricultural industry, which is 30% of our business, and focus on that, maybe we would have found funding. But as bringing the haram portion, which now stuck in the mind of the investor, there was no point of going back. Yeah, so that is one of the hardest ones that I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it answers the question of you need to know who you're pitching to,
Yes.
because the story needs to be the story they'd like to hear and not necessarily your story. So,
Mm.
but anyway, I call them war stories. So it's a lesson learned, I believe. So maybe the follow up to that is how do you maintain resilience? It can be difficult every day being rejected, being told thank you, but no thank you. Some meetings you go in, and by the time you're in the fifth minute, you're very clear this is not going anywhere, but you have to keep pitching. How do you maintain motivation and resilience in such a case?
Yeah, I think if you're an entrepreneur on this call, one of the things we all need, we all have is resilience.
That's true.
And when they say you use a stick to judge the depth of the pond, most of us just want to go in and see how deep it is.
You actually jump
So
in. You don't
you
even go
jump in
slow.
and see and swim to the bottom and hope to go back up. So I
Yeah,
think it's just resilience. And if we gave up on the second failed pitch, I think most of the companies we are proud of today will not be there. Read about how Yahoo refused to buy Gmail, refused to buy Google,
very sad.
uh, how BlackBerry refused to buy, how BlackBerry refused to buy Android. There is something like that, right? And all those
Yeah,
stories are out there.
and Netflix and all that. Yes,
Yes, Netflix and Blockbuster, all these things are there.
yes,
So the question you all ask yourself is, what if the founder of Uber gave up on the first pitch, which is widely publicized? It didn't go well. So
yeah,
you keep on improving your craft, and like told you, improve the what you're presenting and the whom you're
yeah.
presenting to. That would be my advice. There's no end to improving those two. Those two, yeah, yeah.
Thank you for that, Brian. So you mentioned a potential investor that you are pitching to, and it was very clear that your expectations and alignment were completely off.
Mm.
So I believe you've done a raise and closed on it, and of course you went through the process and all that. But then comes the thing of what the investor expects, and you have the company goals. So how do you make sure you have alignment on that so that there's the expectation and your company goals, and you can balance them out?
So so luckily I have invested in some small businesses with my friends, and I have the privilege of sitting on that table of an investor. And you must understand that where somebody has invested, especially if it's not a grant, I don't think a grant is an investment. Maybe we should talk about commercial investment with the return, Francis. Eh?
Yeah,
So for them, they'll be very keen on the performance and the health or the challenges that the company is facing. So how do you achieve that? Is through regular, and regular is debatable. Francis, you'll tell us how regular is regular. Some people will want to have a call with you every week. How do you agree on that? Transparency. I've also learned that over time, that talking about your challenges that you're facing with transparency is very, very important. That we try update them. We develop decks together, tell them of our success and tell them of our failures or challenges, so that they're able to support. And I realize that most investors, once they are invested, once you have a challenge, when you are starting, you'd think you'll be rebuked, but you would be very surprised that they'll be very willing to even
yeah.
support more when you have a challenge. So as I go into year eight, that's a learning that I've had this year, that when you have a challenge, say it as it is. And I'm surprised that actually most of our investors whom we work with currently, give you ideas, not necessarily financial, it's ideas and support to go around it. So having understood the expectations of regular, accurate, and transparent communication and updates, that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
I think maybe it's I don't know if it's how we are indoctrinated or where we feel like if it's not working then you're failing, so we don't know how to actually just speak it up. And like you say, sometimes the solution is actually seated in front of you. You just need to put it across and be honest. So uh, I think that's a good alignment when it comes to investors. So you went through a fundraise, you are doing a fundraise, and as you continue being an entrepreneur, you will probably be doing another fundraise in future. What lessons would you say you learned, or you're learning, or you've learned that if you were to go back, you'd have done differently to be, can I say, more effective? What are these lessons you'd say you've learned?
I think when you lose patience, you've lost the battle. That's what I would say. I think, but there's also, Francis, maybe you can also guide us. Uh, and we entrepreneurs, maybe you're not the right person to guide us. You're also an entrepreneur. How far should you push the patience? So it's about patience. You always believe that this next pitch or this next idea is what turn around the company. So if you start something which you believe in, very important that you stay in the game, be patient enough, hope that it will turn around. So the patience, I think, summarizes all. Patience, learning. That is it. So how we took rejection 4 years ago, different from how we take it now. How you follow up for the updates from the investor now is also different. And you realize that if your business is also successful, Francis, a time comes when now you're the one who is being chased. Nobody talks about that side of the story, right? That
Yeah,
yeah, that
that's what you all wish for.
yeah, that you always wish. And also, if you are successful, now it now becomes the reverse. It's now you choosing whom you want to invest business. So that's what we've learned so far. So there is patience, and also I've also learned to say no. So there's some people, especially the high net worth, whom you just have to say no. So they don't align to vision, don't align to your way of doing work. They don't align the process you want to put in place. I think all but three must learn to say no. Some investors, for those who are starting out, it might sound difficult now, but over time you realize that it's not the money. Sometimes it's even the sort of the money and what the money comes with. The money could come with more baggage than the money. Clearly seen companies which have collapsed after receiving investors. This on record. It talks about also the investors. How do you choose when time comes when you reject an investment? Wait if it is not aligned. If there is danger. So for example, if an investor comes and tells you to maybe divest from a particular part of the business, which is your key revenue earner, clearly see that your model won't work with that particular segment. Yes, you need the money, but it's like suicide money. Other things which you also need to decide. So, or you don't agree on the strategy that you're having then before they invest. This is the strategy for Africa, the strategy for East Africa. If you are seeing not aligned at the strategy level, definitely you will not agree at the implementation level.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. I think on your issue of alignment, it's normally key, and we've seen it. One transaction we are handling, the entrepreneur rejected some investors, of course, who had come in earlier, and it was mainly because of that alignment. Where do you want us to go? How fast do you want us to run? Do you want us to change our culture? It's our culture that brought us here. So I think those are important things that most entrepreneurs ignore in their fundraising. And sometimes it always seems like you're desperate to get the money. So you tend to try sort of bend backwards, but in some cases, that bending backwards may be a little bit more painful. And brings me to the next question. And maybe one of the reasons I'm seated here as the CEO of Raising Capital, and also why we set up Capital Connect. What is your opinion on having an advisor in a transaction? Does it add value? Do you feel it doesn't add value? This is something you can run on your own? Or do you feel maybe it helps when you have someone who does this on a day to day by your side? What's your opinion on that,
So I
Brad?
think the need for the need for an advisor cannot be overemphasized. So along the journey, you will need mentors. Some people say you'll need sponsors. But in the journey of fundraising, meet somebody who has done a raise before. They are all over. Join such fire chats like fire chats like you're having tonight. When you go for your SME conferences, meet people who are there, and you'll be surprised how open and willing entrepreneurs are to support this 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 agenda that you are going through. You'll be surprised that people have a wealth of knowledge, and they say they say it is lonely at the top. And when you find these people, you'll find you are communicating at the same wavelength. They'll be very,
Yeah,
very open and willing to share nuggets of wisdom. And they say an old man can see what a young man cannot see when sitting on a tree. There are
yeah.
things which I can tell you today if you're starting a business that you don't do. I never had that benefit myself, but now I can tell young people, older people for free, so that we're able to avoid you from getting in the same pitfalls that I got into or I saw my friend getting into. There are also companies like Raising Capital and others who handhold you. I would advise you to try do it that way. Get good legal advice. When say advisor, get good legal advice and get good commercial advice. That is technical finance advice. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for acknowledging us. I think we've worked with you at that journey before, all the way to the famous Money in the Bank. And I'm sure you starting the process without us, and after we came along, you can normally, of course, see the difference. So the next question, maybe I'd like to ask, and this one comes almost following up to what you've just mentioned when it comes to what should someone do when you're fundraising. What advice would you give someone who's just about to start fundraising? And even as you prepare for that, I know there are some users on the platforms on YouTube, on LinkedIn. Please share your questions as we come towards the end. We'll be very happy to answer those questions. Ask the tough ones so that Brian can get a little bit stressed in when he's answering. But I'm also happy to answer any questions that you may have for us. So, Brian, maybe you can tell us that even as we await more questions. What advice would you give an aspiring entrepreneur who's fundraising either as an idea or a running business?
Okay. So it's interesting. So the advice that I would give you uh, is you need to understand your business probably more than anybody else. It sounds simple. You need to understand your business and understand your industry. So, like I told you, most of the people I'm going to fundraise from don't understand your business. And you need to not your business, understand your industry. Yeah, you need to really have your numbers right, have your facts right. That's the first starting point for anything. Understand your business, do your homework, do your research, measure the opportunity, size it, and demonstrate that you're able to execute it. And number two, apart from that, is something called adaptability. So adaptability is along the journey, the the pitches I had or the approach I had to doing what I'm doing now has changed over time. And now there's a lot of focus. And Francis forgot to mention that most of the seed funding we're getting is for tech, most likely. There's tech. There's a lot of focus on on sustainability. So it will be very hard for you today to get funding, say, for a coal plant. If you want to do a coal plant somewhere in Kenya, it is very hard. So if you're an energy company, for example, by COP28 should have already changed. Yes, I'm an energy company, but I'm a green energy company. So adaptability. So I would focus on knowledge and adaptability to both the demands of the investors and the current affairs. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you for that. I'll be waiting for the questions as they come up. But just as we try to close out on it, uh, you are currently fundraising. And maybe, do you mind telling us a little bit about, assuming there's an investor on this platform, and as much as you can give with it being confidential, or the confidential parts, what are you raising for? What are you looking for the funding to go to do, and what are you envisioning to achieve when you raise this funding?
So we are basically fundraising for expansion. That is for our business now. It is for expansion and for working capital. So we have had some opportunities out of the country. Uh, we started in Kenya. We are now in Tanzania, and we are basically fundraising to stabilize and grow the opportunity we have found outside the country. And two is just to grow our footprint both in the Kenyan market, which is 80% of our turnover and contribution. So that's why we are fundraising. How far we are now, we have conversations going on, led by raising capital. Like I told you before, it's a continuous process. So we are fundraising now for growth. Those fundraising for startup, we are now fundraising for growth and expansion, and we are meeting different investors. Though we now need to speed up and ensure that we are closing it up by end of the year. Yeah, that's what we're doing now.
Thank you, Brian. I can feel the subtle nudge on ensuring we accelerate that. I'd like to acknowledge Admo here, fellow entrepreneur. She says she's here to learn something new. Thank you also, Anne, for being here. And yeah, this is an initiative where we want to keep running. We've noticed that most of entrepreneurs, while they may need these funding, sometimes we have different conversations, and we need to make sure that we can understand each other and we understand what the investor wants. Also, Ephraim on YouTube, thank you very much, and acknowledging Brian there for his good work. So, Brian, you have some good funds out there. I'd want us to start winding down. I don't think we have any questions, meaning you've done a good job in answering the questions, Brian. So maybe, Brian, just as closing remarks, uh, what can you say overall? There's always a whole lot of talk around fundraising in Kenya, fundraising in Africa, the funds not being accessible. Can you be able to just talk a little bit about that, even as you also give your closing remarks?
Uh, Good. So, as we say, fundraising in Kenya and Africa, I also read an article that in terms of growth, in terms of the amount of FDI and seed capital, it's also growing. So it may not be enough yet, but it's growing. Just shows the amount of, and it's growing faster than probably the more developed markets. So the question is, the quantum might not be there, but the opportunity is there for us to come up with the right ideas. And if you have listened to what we've said today about placing yourself correctly and packaging your business in the right way, there is opportunity to be funded here in Africa. And if you look at, say, the companies that are coming up to even do incubation labs, I would encourage you to visit them, look at them, and see what you can learn from them. There are a lot of grant funding coming in now. say if you are in the wash space, the environment space, the edutech space, there's a lot of grant funding you need to look out for. And definitely now for the grants, France is it's now inverse. Africa perhaps is the biggest recipient of grants in the world. So
Yeah.
maybe as we look uh, at the normal commercial fundraise, if you are in a space where you also qualify for grants, I also want you to also apply for them. Something called TA. TA is also an area which you can get. You might get funding in terms of money in the bank, but as a young business, you'll need support in terms of putting in systems, putting in processes, refining even your idea better. There are a lot of funds that I've seen that just give TA is technical assistance to the startups so that they prepare them to be raise ready. Probably in 2 years or 3 years, they work on the business. By the time you're going for the raise, your company is ready and prepared to receive the raise. So yes, there is a lot of negative stuff happening, but there is opportunity again. Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. They say that I don't know who to attribute this to, but if you go to a country and there's no one who wears shoes, you could look at it and say there's no market for shoes, or you could say there's a very big market. So, as an entrepreneur, I get your point, and think it's a good point to entrepreneurs that even when things are not working, there are opportunities in there. On my end, thank you, Absalom, on LinkedIn. Very insightful. Another entrepreneur building a good business called Scout Global. I think, Brian, you may be having kids who are also becoming sports people, and uh, Absalom is actually building a very good platform for that. I also want to acknowledge the Kenya session of fundraising professionals. Thank you for joining in. Great conversation, some notes and pointers to talk for, know how to tell your story, make your story resonate emotionally, know your audience, research your background. Resilience matters, rejections are part of the process, and learn for each no, refine your approach, and continue building relationships. Thank you very much from the Kenya Association of Fundraising Professionals. On my end, I want to thank you, Brian, for coming here and talking about a very difficult process. The challenge with fundraising and for all entrepreneurs is it tends to become the point where you are seeking validation, not just money. Who will say no, and every no sometimes chips at your confidence because it feels like what you thought can work maybe is not the real thing. And it gets worse when you're talking about valuations and equity transactions. And you can get very emotional because you feel that's the worth that you're being given.
Mm.
So thank you so much for opening up to this, to the uh, audience who've signed up and engaged. Really, really appreciate you joining. And we will be having more sessions with entrepreneurs and investors. So always be on the lookout for conversations with Raising Capital and Capital Connect. And as we close it, at Raising Capital, we are transaction advisors. We help African businesses to access capital. And we do that both as raising and also through the matchmaking platform, which helps you on investor readiness, preparedness, and matchmaking. And that is Capital Connect. We are very grateful for the time you've accorded us. You can always share the links to this to the people who do not have the time to watch it live and look forward to the next opportunity you can be able to have a conversation. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Rachel, for putting all this together. And thanks to the Raising team and the Capital Connect team. Thank you. Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you are. Asanteni sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.